All right. Zoom is setting up our meeting for Facebook Live, so they may be seeing us now. If you can see us now, hang on. Takes a minute to make this transfer. Let me just double check. I think we're going to be live.
I just got a pop-up that you are live now because I'm an admin.
Oh, okay, great. Now let me get back to Zoom. Hold on, everybody. You know that it takes me a minute to do this. Where's my little Zoom icon? There it is. That's not the right one. My other Zoom icon. And
are we good?
I am getting so good at this. I could make my living doing this now.
I'm going to hire you. Do you know that we actually hire people to produce these now because it stresses out the publicist so much?
And do you know that early on, I had to send instructions to our publishing company on how to do this? I figured it out before you techies did.
So, I mean, I read your instructions and I did not understand them.
Well, they were I only partially understood them. So everyone, I am here with a huge publishing mucky muck. I blackmailed.
Oh my God.
Here.
Oh my God.
This is Pamela
Jaffee. Blackmailed. I'm getting higher.
This is Pamela Jaffee, who is adjusting her screen, but when she's not doing that, she is the Senior Director of Publicity and Brand Development for HarperCollins. And she is also the most high energy person I know. First question is a little bit, but you know, I ask the hard questions on these interviews.
You always ask hard questions. And then I am going to get even with you someday. But okay, go for it.
So you're the most high energy person. Do you do that by taking drugs?
No.
It's just your natural state of mind.
Here's the thing. I'm ADHD.
Yeah.
I've admitted it. And I go until I sit down. And once I sit down, I crash and I go narcoleptic.
And this is all to our advantage. Do you remember the first encounter we had? I was already at Avon when you came in. Do you remember the first
encounter? Just before or after you called me a shark?
It was probably about that time. You remember that first encounter we had? What I said to you?
Because then you called me a shark.
What I said was that having you as the director of publicity, as my publicist, was my dream, because for years you were with other publishing companies and I'd come into conferences and things and I would watch you get all of your authors these amazing gigs and I got nada. And so when you came on to Avon and I knew you were going to be my publicist, I was really, really nice to you.
I wasn't your publicist. You had Heather for years and Heather loved you and I wasn't going to take you away from Heather. Do you remember Heather?
I think you were working with Heather because right away, the kind of publicity I was getting changed. I was getting much. Do you know that one time, I shouldn't tell all of you this, but one time I spent thousands of dollars hiring an outside publicist. This is when This Heart of Mine came out, which was my first hardback. And I thought it'd be cool to have an outside publicist to supplement whatever you guys were doing. And the outside publicist did nothing. And I had to pay her thousands of dollars. That was not good.
That's the joy of publicity, Susan. You don't know what you're going to get. It is literally bulldogging.
Yeah, truly.
It's bulldogging and it's hard. And there's sometimes in some campaigns that you get everything. And there's some campaigns that you get nothing.
So tell us what your title means, Director of Publicity and Brand Development. Exactly what does that mean? Because this is for brand development for Avon Romance and Harper Voyager.
Right.
Okay.
And it's actually, it's confusing. I had a conversation with someone today who thought I was brand development for the authors. Not so much. I'm brand development for the imprints. Mm-hmm. Publicity director. That means I oversee the campaigns and help create the overriding campaigns seasonally for all the romance authors and all the science fiction authors. Doesn't mean that I work on them. I'm assigned 6 to 8 books myself each season that I work on, and I'm the personal publicist. I also, as the director of the imprint, do what I like to call like Pam's picks. And I've got a list of 50 very high tier national contacts who are romance positive. And maybe once every 2 months or so, I give them a hot list of titles that I really want them to consider, the books that really stand out from the list. And I shouldn't be saying this because authors are going to all ask, am I on the list? Am I on the list? At some point you are on the list. I try to be, I try to be fair. You know, I really try to be fair. And I'm like, hey, if you can consider this book would be great. The publicist is, you know, X.
Right.
And then if they're interested, I push them towards the publicist. And then, you know, it helps get publicity. And it's just, I act kind of as like a super agent, sneaking around behind and getting a little bit more for books on the list, as well as working on my campaigns. Brand is interesting.
Now, wait a minute. So let me ask, so when you're sending these special packages out that you do, I mean, you can't send everything out because
no, it's email. It's email now.
Impact.
It's email.
So when you send these out, you're sending them out to the press, to Instagram influencers, to who are you sending them to?
I am sending it to. So I'll send to Instagram for the books I represent. Okay. My colleague Kaylee does a monthly blast to about 300 contacts where she lists all the romances coming out for the next 2 or 3 months. And that goes to Instagrammers and bloggers and whatnot. So that's her area. I take national. So I'm always looking for national media who might be interested in romance, who might cover something that's romance adjacent. So I could say to them, hey, I see you covered X. Would you be interested in hearing about more books like this from Avon? And at which point I add them to this list and reach out to them, as I said, like every 2 months. And it's usually around 50 contacts. It's not a huge list, but it's carefully cultivated, and I water it and I love it and grow it. And if I have to weed it, I weed it. And I'm not giving them a ton of books. So if we're talking about a season, how many books published in a season, right? So I may be taking 8 that I want them to realize need special consideration. But at the same time,
and these are 8 that you probably think have a chance of getting national coverage, because some books, you know, they're not big enough books, or they're not on a topic that would necessarily attract national press. So you're being pretty strategic, I'm assuming, with that list.
There has to be an angle. There has to be a hook. It is a pure publicity list. So it's not, you know, it's not review. It's not bookstagrammers. Every book is going to get that's the great thing about Avon. Every book is going to get a ton of coverage, and you're going to get coverage. You know, you're going to get big coverage from big sites. You're going to get the, you know, the pop sugars. That's always a really awesome hit. But you're also going to get, you know, the romance reviewers, and you're going to get bookstagrammers, and you're going to get influencers of various sorts. So by the end of a campaign, you've had 1,000 touches.
Yeah. Now,
you know,
those of you who are not with Avon Books, or who may be independent publishers, hold on, because I'm going to talk to Pam about that in a little bit. So this will not just be directed toward Avon, but we'll pick her brain for some wisdom for the rest of you. But just hold on. I want to go back a little bit and ask you about your. Oh, wait a minute. Just first, tell us briefly what brand development means, as opposed to
publicity, which I just did. Okay. Yeah. Brand development is a way of bringing authors and readers together. It's not publicity. It's not marketing. So I consider brand development, my segment of brand development isn't in looking at your Facebook numbers or your Instagram numbers or your TikTok numbers and saying, we need to grow your TikTok numbers and here's how, and let me help you do it. It's, I am going to grow you through contact with X audience. I'm going to introduce you to new readers, and this is how. And it's a little bit more organic, as far, you know, it's not as tech-based as building up your social media. So it could be, and I've dragged you into this, it could be that I put together a really great topical panel discussion. It has 8 authors. And the trick of the trade is I'm always going to have a Susan Elizabeth Phillips on that panel. I'm always going to have a marquee author. But I'm also going to have an author who is Susan adjacent and could use growth and really could use a boost, would benefit from Susan's audience, because you guys are amazing. You guys are amazing. You buy books and you always are looking for new authors to read. And Susan is the kindest, gentlest soul, and she loves to introduce authors to you. But what I found in romance is it's not just Susan. Romance authors in general are just the loveliest and most generous, and they do love to help nurture careers. So we usually will have a panel that has everyone from Susan to brand new author.
Yep.
Every stage there, and we make sure it's inclusive. We make sure it's representative, which is, could be challenging. And it's something that I've worked very hard on for the past couple of years. Actually working in tandem with other publishers to create more representative panels and events, and then bringing you into contact with those fans. So it's brand development by way of events in fashion, or by way of publicity and partnering X author with Y author. Do you remember once upon a time, I sent you a pink envelope that your UPS man?
Pink Mylar envelope.
Her UPS man carried it up to her stair like a dead rat, knocked on her door, and literally just like, and in it was this Hitman book, Hitman romance. It was hysterical. It was funny. And I was just like, you know what? Out of nowhere, I was just like, Susan might like this. Susan might enjoy this book. So she did.
And if I enjoy it, then I'm going to go on my Facebook page, my platforms, and talk to readers about it. Because for one thing, I'm only going to have a book out probably every 2 years, and readers want a new book every couple of days. So I always say a high tide floats all ships. It's great to be able to introduce readers to these new books. Can we back up a little bit? And what kind of things were you reading as a kid? You were a reader as a child, weren't you?
Oh, I was absolutely a reader. My father used to just shake his head. He's like, are you ever going to get off the sofa? Are you going to do anything but read? And
go outside. And you say, no, if I'm going outside, I'm taking the book outside.
What did I start with? I read a lot of, times were different then, right? Like I would ride my bike to Walden Books, and we didn't have the fabulous YA books that they have now. So you had slender books like Sweet Valley High type books, and Twilight, and like they were the size of Harlequins. Like they were really thin books, and you could read one in an hour.
Did you always like romance from the time you were, let's say a preteen or a teen? When did you fall in? Because you are truly in love with the romance genre. When did you fall in love with it?
I want to say Beverly Cleary, 15.
Okay.
But I just told the story. It's really funny. 4th grade, we were going on a family vacation, and somehow, bookworm, I'll never live this out. I forgot my books. Going away for a week, I didn't bring any books. Can you imagine?
I'm surprised you didn't end up in the hospital.
Right. I mean, Mexico too. I was like, what am I going to do? I can't go in the sun, for God's sake. So my sister's 5 years older than me, so she was in 9th grade. So she's like, don't worry. Here's some of the books I'm reading. Here, take these. And it was tiny. It was like the little Twilight books that I was reading, or Sweet Valley High books. Bright red cover. I read it. I had no clue what was going on. No clue. They were doing something on a copy machine in an office. I didn't understand the mechanics, like physics. I had no clue what was going on. But that was my introduction to romance in the 4th grade. And I've been reading romance since the 4th grade. I would get on my bike. I would drive to 2 towns down to the used bookstore. I would take my allowance. I'd come back with a sack of books.
What about?
And I would be reading everything.
What about the romance genre particularly appeals to you? What draws you into it?
What doesn't appeal about romance genre? If someone doesn't read romance, their heart is withered and wrong.
She said
nothing but wonderful about romance. Everyone should read romance. There's no one thing that makes you read romance. Like every human should take time to read a romance. It's good for you.
Is it true that you read a book a day?
I used to read more than that. Here's the thing. Yeah. It's weird with COVID. I used to commute 3 to 4 hours a day. So what did I do on the train? So I would go to the gym for an hour. I'd get on the elliptical at 5 a.m. and I'd read while I elliptical because I'm insane. I would get on the train for an hour and a half to 2 hours. I'd read. Then I'd get on the train home for an hour and a half, read. I could read 2 books a day if I really wanted to. My husband was there reading the New York Times, doing a crossword puzzle, and I'm just like on my reader.
And you don't have that time now because you're probably working, doing actual work longer now than you were when you were commuting into the office.
There's no downtime. I don't know how you work from home, Susan. There's no downtime at home.
It's a special, it's kind of a special skill you have to develop over the years to figure out how to work at home. And that's a whole different subject.
I'm gonna have to take lessons from you. It's really tough, but I've gotten back. It's not a book a day anymore. It's maybe 3 books a week. I want to get back to reading more. I now am waking up at 3 a.m. Oddly, I think a lot of people are waking up at 3 a.m. for no reason. And I read for 2 hours. And then I start my day. Oh my God, the hat. Heroes are my weakness.
This is what, all of you, this is what I get in the mail from Pam. I'm out promoting Heroes Are My Weakness. Remember?
No, you hadn't gone out. You were
getting ready to go.
I was mad at you.
Which is set in Maine. And so she sends me this. It's supposed to be a lobster, but it's really a crab. I'm supposed to do my presentations with this on my head.
She did. I drove to Connecticut to make sure she did.
You will do anything to get press.
Yes.
My grandchildren, by the way, find this in my closet, and I'll look up and there's one of them running around with this on their head.
You still have it. You love the crab hat.
Well,
you love the crab hat.
It makes a statement. In your
have you ever talked to Christina Dodd about the banana, the armpit banana? Because that's also a story.
Oh no, I'll have to, because Christina Dodd is a friend of mine. I'll have to find that out.
Ask her about the armpit banana. It's better than the crab hat.
So here's what I want to know. Backtracking. So were you interested in getting into the publishing industry from the beginning, or was this something that you got into over time? I mean, did you start out of college? How does that work?
I wanted to be an editor. I wanted to be a romance editor. I went to Binghamton University. I studied literature and rhetoric because there was nothing there that was a track that was like getting into publishing.
Right.
I was really lucky. I had a informative interview. Someone at college set up for me with someone at, I think, the Doubleday Book Club. And they met with me and they were so kind. But they said to me, you can't be an editor.
Because
I'm too scattered. The way I think, my brain doesn't function in the way an editor's brain is supposed to function.
Yeah.
And they looked at me like,
Carrie, she can be very systematic, very logical in her thinking. Neither you or I apparently have that gift.
No, my brain is an explosion. Like I don't follow a path. My brain just goes. And so she said to me, this woman was lovely. She's like, you need to look into publicity, public relations. What the hell is public relations? So I took my senior year and I interned for the full year, worked free, loved it, at the local community hospital in Binghamton. I learned community relations, I learned public relations, and it was wonderful. But it's really hard to break into publishing. God bless their souls, Harlequin and Silhouette turned me down so many times.
They did.
In my first couple years, trying to get a job with them, which is funny. It comes full circle because then I was working for a PR firm, and I've told you these stories. Like my clients were like Legs Pantyhose and Shiseido and DuPont Performance Fabrics and knives and wine and all these weird things. And I walk in for an interview for a new job, and I just stop and gasp. The VP's office, where I walked into, it's just floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, Harlequins. And of course, it was a long time ago in different days. You didn't have the ability to Google something. We still typed out all our press lists and ran things off. And I was aghast, and I got the job. And I was not allowed to work on the account for 2 years, which was torture.
Yeah.
But then when I turned 25, I was able to work on the account. and I never looked back. And from the point that I've been 25 to now, I've worked as a romance publicist.
Yeah. So you were with Harlequin
Harlequin and Harper. So
and
I was with Harlequin.
You were with
I was with
You were with Harlequin before it was part of Harper, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was with Harlequin up until, well, I was with this firm for a while.
Yeah.
And I was with Harlequin. We launched Mira. Mm-hmm. Of course, that's where I worked with Robin Carr and Debbie Makehomer. We launched Luna Books. We worked on a variety of imprints. Then I left, and I kept working with my new firm with Harlequin, and I launched Red Dress Inc., which was their chick lit line.
Oh, I remember Red Dress, yeah.
And then I had Kate. Remember Kate?
Who's going to be going to college soon? I do.
Who's going to be going to college, and that's my secondary hobby this year is getting Kate to college. So I had her in June, and at the end of the summer, Carla Neggers, I love her so much, says, my agent says there's a publicity director job opening up at HarperCollins in Avon. Would you be interested? I was like, this is what I've been waiting my entire life for. So I had to come back from maternity leave, and they've given me the time off and tell them I was quitting. So basically, I got off maternity leave. I started HarperCollins in November of 2006, November 10th, 2006.
And you've been there since.
Here I am.
So you do not, I'm looking at some of the questions that I got from readers and writers on my Facebook page. I know that you don't personally buy books.
What? I buy at least 20 ebooks a month. Don't tell my
husband. Talking about acquiring.
Oh, acquiring books. No. No, I don't acquire books, but I read like a crazy pants person, and I will go to an editor and say, I adore this author. This author is fabulous. You need to acquire this author. And
that's
then I'll the editor for 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's happened a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah. So that you have indirect input. If an editor is looking at whether or not to buy an author, do they ever run any manuscripts past you to get your input? Because I know they do it with other authors.
Yeah, they definitely do.
With other editors. Yeah.
It's a divide and conquer. The full Morrow, you're published by Morrow and Avon both. The full Morrow publicity department, I think is about 18, right? 18 publicists. So we will all read a book to decide whether or not it's got publicity hooks and is publicizable. So I typically will read a romance acquisition or a science fiction acquisition to put in the publicity, opinion on the book, whether or not it should be acquired. But half the time the editors don't need me, so the romance realm, they just acquire. And they tell me later.
So
they like that.
Someone asked, will Avon be doing another direct manuscript submission contest again? If so, when, and was it helpful? So a 3-tiered, do you have any?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. So will we be doing one? We are going to wrap our brain around it. It takes a long time, actually, because you have to build the portal for the submission.
Yeah.
Then you get thousands of submissions. And then the editors have to read thousands of submissions.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work on the editors. So it's very much a possibility. I can't say when. Was it successful? Yes, it was. 2 things that came out of our most recent one were Low Country Bride, which we are publishing in June by Presleza Williams. And then Happy Endings, which we're publishing in May by Thien Kim Lam, who people might know as the website proprietress of Body Bookworms. And she also owns a sex toy shop, and the heroine of the book owns a sex toy shop, and it's all very amazing and fun. So
interesting.
2 acquisitions is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think the frustrating thing, speaking for readers who are or writers who are trying to get published, is publishing houses are not accepting submissions except through agents. They're sort of using agents now for that first read. And so editors writers have to focus on trying to find an agent, and that gets complicated. And so I know that the direct submission is a real huge load of work for all of you, but speaking on behalf of the unpublished writers, I'm hoping that at some point you do it again, because it does give readers
it's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I like that.
It's lovely. And
we also used to say, Jane Prince and I used to say, find the lowest ranking person, the newest person in a publishing house, and send them a snappy little query and a couple of chapters that are fabulous. And our thinking has always been, those new people, the publishing house, those new editors are hungry. You might be able to slip something in. Now, that's not official policy. I'm certainly not speaking for Avon Books. Pam may disagree with me, but I'm just saying it's a thought. Find somebody.
You never know. But we are a small and tight ship. We're not a huge, we are a great publisher, but we have a tight list. So, and we try to make it sustainable.
For readers, or for new writers or established writers who are not part of Avon Books, perhaps they're self-published, what advice do you give them to help them find eyes, to help them find readers? What are just a couple of things that they can do? Nobody knows their name. They've got this wonderful book, let's say, that they've self-published. How do they find readers? It's a big question, I know.
It's a big question. It's bigger than me. You definitely need to have a social media platform, and you need to work to grow it. And we did talk about that earlier with, making connections with other authors and asking them to read. I recommend that with a grain of salt, because there are sometimes that you receive queries that are very uncomfortable for you. Very, if you're going to ask an author to read your book and maybe give you a quote, be kind and pleasant and gracious about it. Approach that author kind of, not carefully, but appreciatively, politely. And that if they have time to read your submission and give you a quote and help you, that's an author recommendation is still the number one way of getting out there, because you are a known entity, you are trusted. You as an author are a premium brand. They read your books, they love your books, they know that they're going to love what you read. You are the ultimate trust. You should be reading across the media, looking at the various publications that cover romance, the various websites that cover romance, reaching out to them, making them known, giving them review copies of your book, seeing if you could do an interview, seeing if they'd be willing to review. Publishers Weekly and Kirkus both have a paid review platform specifically for self-published books. I know it is what it is, but that way you can get a trade review.
Those reviews, by the way, for Kirkus and Publishers Weekly, those are going to be industry reviews. Readers won't necessarily see them.
Right, but
librarians will.
But librarians will, booksellers might, but it's also a quote for you. It's a bona fide quote from a bona fide source.
So trying to get quotes from a good source, not from your mother or your next door neighbor, but from a really a known source. That would be huge.
And the same thing when you're reaching out to bloggers or Instagrammers, it's the same theory when you're new as when you're approaching the authors for a read. You can message them. You could ask them if they'd be willing to read your book. Be nice, be gracious about it, and say, if you cover it, I'd be really appreciative. If you'd send me the link when you cover it, I'd be super appreciative. Pay them back, not monetarily, share. Mm-hmm. So when they support you, you support them in return.
Right. You share
their views your tribe.
Or yes.
You need to build a tribe. What you need to do as a new author is build a tribe. You need other new authors, friends. You need a friend group who's going to support you and hold your hand and be your circle. You need authors that you aspire to and look up to, and who might be willing to mentor you a bit, give you their hand. You need the reviewers. You need bookstagrammers now. It's a big thing. You can have a sense of humor. The new thing that's coming up, which I live in horror of, is book talk. You could be on book talk. You could book talk your books, and you would go viral.
Oh, Pam,
don't tell Susan that. Don't tell Susan that. She'll do it. It'll be bad. I'm not letting you book talk. You're good here. You're good here.
Well, and let me just say that I get approached a lot by unpublished writers asking me to read, and I have to turn that down. Mm-hmm. And the reason I mainly turn it down is because I'm still trying to catch up with manuscripts that friends and publishers have sent me, which I have to give first priority to. And like right now, it's October, and I'm still trying to catch up with things that were sent to me in July or August. So,
well, when I say you need to send to a Susan, you don't necessarily need to send to someone of Susan's stature. You need to send to someone who's got name recognition. It doesn't have to be
sometimes
a multinational New York Times bestseller.
This is true. And sometimes writers who are starting out, but getting established, have a publisher, they like to be able to quote books because it gets their name on the copy of other authors' books. So that's something to think about. Do you think that there are any particular settings, themes that are very marketable in romance right now?
Settings and themes. It's interesting. Of course, we all know that rom-coms and contemporaries are on the rise. My little gut instinct is that like rom-com-y paranormals are going to be on the rise shortly.
Rom-com paranormals?
Rom-com-y, like lighter paranormals. Yeah. In times like this,
people might want a lighter read.
People like pure escapism. Mm-hmm. Last time that rom-coms had a surge was in a really stressful time. Not rom-coms, sorry. Last time paranormals had a surge was in a really stressful time.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I've seen books hit lists lately that makes me think maybe, paranormals are coming back. I don't know if they're being bought yet, but definitely contemporaries are big.
Let me add something for writers out there. If you're working with romantic comedy, you want to write romantic comedy, just one little tip. Physical slapstick does not necessarily translate well to a novel. It translates beautifully to film, but not necessarily to a novel. So your heroine slipping on a banana peel and falling at the hero's feet is going to work better in film than it will in a novel. In romantic comedy, you really want to think dialogue-based and character-based more than slapstick. All right.
Can we talk about this for a second? Rom-coms. My thing with rom-coms, I don't know why they're called rom-coms, because they're really contemporary romances, like women's fiction romances. You read an Alicia Rye, and while it's funny and it's written in such a witty fashion, the soul of the book is the heroine's journey. And that's what that reader is looking for, is the heroine's journey and the heroine's growth. And a rom-com is like a Tom Hanks, movie. It's like something light and sweet. But the current rom-coms do kind of veer a little bit more serious than you would think they do, being called rom-coms and given the absolutely delectable cover treatments they do.
Yeah, that is absolutely so true. If you're writing romantic comedy, you want to be able to really dive deeper into the book. You don't want just a piece of fluff. You want characterization. You want dialogue. You want the journey of the hero and the heroine. That's what I think makes it more popular and what readers love so much about it. Okay, this is another subject, and in a minute I want to ask you who you think are up and coming writers. But first, I love this question because I also wonder. I don't think she's going to answer it, by the way, but I can ask her. How much do you spend to market a book or an author? That's not my question.
Guys, I'm publicity. I don't spend anything.
See how she
all I spend as a publicist is the money to put my author on travel if they're in a time of travel. Publicity does not spend money on hits. A paid hit is not valid in my book.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, and by the way, here's something I do that drives Pam crazy. I'm not, when you're on an actual book tour, which of course we're not on right now, you go into a city and an author, if you're flying in, you're kind of flying into a new city every day, an author escort will meet you and drive you to places.
Do you see me? Do you see me shaking my head? Do you know why I gave you the crab hat?
I say to Sharon, can I just rent a car? Because I like to drive, especially like if I'm going from Lansing, Michigan.
This is why she got the crab hat, by the way. I was mad. You should not have driven yourself to Maine.
I drove from Portland. Oh, this made her really nuts. I wanted a car, drove from Portland to someplace in Massachusetts.
How about the time you drove to the Badlands?
I know.
You just up and drove to the Badlands on me.
Oh, and I drove to the Badlands. Yeah, that one really made her crazy. But the last thing a world.
Do you see my face? Not happy.
I don't want to be trapped in a car with a strange man and have to make conversation. Plus, I like to drive. All right, got that one out of the way. Now, tell us who you're excited about now in terms of newer authors that are coming along. And I know Avon I want to talk about newer authors, and I also want to talk about diversity at Avon because you've got some really, really interesting diverse authors who are publishing books. So talk to us about give us some hints of who to be reading now.
I'm going to kind of tie those two together. I think I'm going to focus a little bit more on the diverse books because it is my passion and it's something I've really tried to work hard to grow over the past couple of years. And now I'm going to take out the notepad. Everyone wishes they had my notepad.
Oh my goodness. Okay,
one of the favorite things I read this year was Loathe at First Sight, which I know you read. I'm pretty sure you read, by Suzanne Park.
Carrie
acquired her.
Loathe
at isn't it Loathe at First Sight?
Loathe at First Sight. No, nobody sent me this book. It was not on my radar.
A brand new book acquired by Carrie.
She was talking about that too. She said she really liked it.
Everyone, my number one thing is go out and buy this book. Loathe at First Sight by Suzanne Park. It's fabulous. It is the story of a female, game designer, game producer, game director.
In a guy's world?
In a guy's world, trying to break in. She's dealing with racism. She's dealing with sexism. She is the alpha in the story, with the male as the support. So cinnamon roll, I guess is the term. But you're so frustrated. You're just so frustrated for her condition, and you feel her condition, and it's the type of book we need to be reading, but at the end, she comes out on top. And Suzanne's so talented. I really think that she's like the next big thing. The other one that people should read, and it's out.
By the way, I'll post these in the comments. Go ahead.
It's out right now, and everyone should read it. Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. Spoiler
alert by Olivia who?
Dade, D-A-D-E. She's not new, but she's new to us. Mm-hmm. It's body positivity. So it's the first time I've seen a cover with a heroine that's gloriously rounded, like so many of us are, and we'd like to see more of us on covers and see ourselves represented. It centers on fandom and cosplay. It centers on fanfic and writing about your favorite program, rewriting your favorite. More than one of my former staffers was huge into fanfic. I didn't realize it even existed, that people were rewriting books and TV series. But this book has just been so celebrated, because of the body positivity aspect and the geekiness of it, the glorious glory of geekiness, the celebration of geekiness. And don't we need that?
All right, I got that one down.
I'm going to say everyone in your audience knows Talia Hibbert. So the next one out by Talia Hibbert is Act Your Age, Eve Brown.
Is what?
Act Your Age, Eve Brown. Why am I leaning into my eye?
No, I do the same thing. Uh-oh, we just lost your video. Act Your Age.
Am I back? No, I'm here.
Yeah, you're here.
Act Your Age, Eve Brown.
Okay, we just lost you.
Eve Brown.
Got it.
Talia Hibbert. Well, my phone rang. And so when your phone rings, every Apple device decides to tell you that your phone is ringing and that a telemarketer is trying to get you to buy a timeshare, which you're not going to buy in the middle of a pandemic. Hired to the telemarketers.
Now, doesn't my friend Eloisa James have something new coming out now?
She has something coming out next week.
We always like
And that is My Last Duchess.
My Last Duchess, right.
It's lovely. It's a Christmas book. It's not a Christmas book, it's a holiday book.
Holiday.
It takes place during the Frost Fair in Regency times.
Okay.
And if you're reading The Wilds of Lindau Castle, it's the dad's story. It's Hugh's love story.
That's right. I remember
And
this.
it's sweet and it's lovely. You don't have to have read the series. It's a great place to enter the series. And then she does have Wild Child, which we believe could be the final book in the series coming out towards March.
Okay.
Something that everyone could pick up right now that would make them feel like they're drinking a mug of hot.
Oh, crap. I think your phone
Sorry,
is...
someone keeps trying to call me. That's the problem. Yep, someone's trying to call me.
Okay. Give us two more before we go.
A Princess for Christmas. This is a new acquisition to Avon. She's formerly from Forever, Jenny Holiday. And if you love Meg Cabot, if you love, fictional European royalty coming to America and falling in love with cab drivers, so it's a reverse Cinderella story. It's lovely and it's wonderful. It's warm and it's chocolatey. Literally, it's chocolatey. Like hot cocoa is central to the story. It's really cool. Something that I just read that's coming out a little bit later, it's coming out towards February, is First Comes Like. It's the new book by Alicia Rai. And in her Modern Love series, I couldn't recommend it enough. It's sweet. And if you've read Alicia Rai, hearing that a book that she wrote is sweet is highly unusual.
She really hot, doesn't she normally?
Does. But this one, the characters have cultural backgrounds that preclude kissing, that preclude sex. So she makes small scenes like an almost hug, pinkies touching, sizzle, and feels so sexy. And so your emotions are running so high in this book. The chemistry is just so drawn out. And she said it was hard for her. She's used to writing sex scenes, to write something so pure. And then they get married and they can have sex.
Yeah.
But to write something so pure for her was a challenge. But it's really one of the best books I've read in a long time.
Oh, this is great. All right, everybody. I am going to post all of these. There are more questions for Pam. We might have to try again later on, but I'm going to post these books on my Facebook page. Pam Jaffee, I miss seeing you. I miss getting in person. Right back at you. You are the best. And thanks so much for taking time for your busy schedule to talk with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm taking your best girl out to Connecticut to play volleyball after this. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Is really.
So I'm road tripping. So thank you for giving me something fun to do before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everybody.